call the Stayton City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks for joining us. Everybody from council is present, and good evening to our esteemed city attorney, Ross, in the audience. Thank you for coming up, Ross. With that, is there any additions to the agenda? Any additions to the agenda? No. Any declarations of ex parte contact, conflict of interest, bias, etc.? I don't hear any. It's an opportunity for public comment. I didn't see any public comment testimony submitted, so we'll skip that. That moves us along to the consent agenda from May 19th, which is the May 19th City Council work session minutes, May 19th City Council regular session minutes, and resolution number 25-016, appointing the appointment of Charles Baldwin to the Planning Commission. What would council like to do?
Mr. Mayor,
Council Ort?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as submitted. Is there any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. That leaves us with presentations. Julia, looks like we have a wastewater treatment facility recognition presentation.
Yes, I'm actually going to have Barry come up and introduce the presenters, and he'll go from there.
Cool. Barry, take it away.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm first going to make some corrections that apparently I introduced this subject wrongly last council meeting, and that I said some things that Matt's going to correct for me. So anyway, Matt Tensel from PNWCA, Pacific Northwest Clean Waters Association, will come up and he will present awards to the wastewater treatment plant. Matt?
Alrighty. Thank you, Barry, and council and mayor. As Barry said, my name is Matt Etzel. I'm the president of the West Central section of the PNCWA. The West Central section covers 7 counties in Oregon. They are Marion, Lane, Lynn, Polk, Benton, Lincoln, and Tillamook counties. So our section covers a big chunk of Oregon. If you can picture it on an Oregon map, it basically goes from the Cascades to the coast and then from Wilsonville down to Cottage Grove. So a big area, a lot of wastewater treatment plants and operators in that section. We're a nonprofit board of volunteers, of operators from different cities. We all get together and we put on trainings for water and wastewater operators within our section. One of the things we're well known for throughout the PNCWA, and for those of you who don't know, the PNCWA covers Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. One of the things our section's well known for is our plant profiles. Our plant profiles are when we host, our city hosts a tour. We get the operators continuing education credits and feed them lunch, and they get to tour different wastewater treatment facilities. A lot of their same technology or same equipment, and they're able to ask different operators questions about that equipment and network with operators within our section. And we think it's a really cool workshop that we do. As a city that hosts a tour also gets put in the drawing for Plant of the Year. Our board votes on the Plant of the Year award, and that's just one of the reasons why I'm here today, but I'm going to save that award for last. I'm going to start with, we also do a collections and a treatment operator of the year award, and we like to recognize folks working in the wastewater industry because a lot of you guys know this job is not necessarily glamorous, right? We're dealing with people's waste. We're doing it on a daily basis. And as you guys know, as council members and mayor, is you guys see the bills for these facilities or this equipment, and it's one of the biggest infrastructure pieces within the city. It's your biggest cost. So it's important that you have qualified, knowledgeable, and great employees working on in these facilities. And we really think that it's important that you guys all know the work that they're doing. We started presenting these awards at council meetings about 5 to 6 years ago, and it's been well received, and we just think it's really important that you guys all know the hard work that these guys are doing out in the field. A lot of times you guys might not see it, but you see the bills, right? So I want to start with our collections operator of the year. I have to start with a personal story about this operator. I work for another local city. I work for the city of Almsville, and we were building our public works facility, and we had a contractor on site, and they broke a 2-inch PVC water line. It was like January, February of last year, and we went to fire up our Vector truck. One of the reasons why we built a public works facility, our Vector truck was sitting out in the weather. It was frozen. We couldn't get some of the equipment started on it. I called up Danielle. I said, hey, I need help. I need a Vector truck. Can you help me? She said, I'll have someone there in 10 to 15 minutes. Sure enough, Dennis showed up. He's still got the big smile on his face that he did when he showed up. Our guys were trying to help him unload equipment off of the truck. He's like, nope, I got it. Hooked everything up. Got down to the water main, shut the water off, saved us flooding. Blazer Industries, another big manufacturing company in Almsville, and a mini storage. So that's my personal experience with him. I read his nomination and I was like, hands down, this guy's got to get it. And our board also agreed with that. Dennis also jumped in. Last year, Stayton hosted a tour, one of our plant profiles, and Dennis hopped in. He led groups of operators throughout the plant, and that speaks volumes to what was said in his nomination, that he's willing to help out any way that he can, including at the treatment plant, in the collection system, setting up a new TV system for you guys' collection system, and being able to provide those services in-house, which saves you guys tons of money. I know it probably didn't feel like that when you bought that equipment, but it will save you tons of money, guarantee it. So without further ado, I'd like to congratulate Dennis Harris on our 2025 Collections Operator of the Year. So our next one, which this is kind of uncommon for us as well, to have multiple winners from the same city. And when we went through the nominations, again, like I said, the 7 counties, they all nominate operators. And when we read about Dale McClassen and what he's been able to do in the somewhat short period that he's been a wastewater operator, we just felt that it was important to acknowledge Dale. Some of the things that were said in his nomination were that he's taken on some of the lab duties, where you have to understand certain procedures on how to do the test correctly. DEQ is always watching those things. You want to make sure you're doing it right because it affects how the process goes within the plant. He's also able to stop what he's doing in the lab, go out and grab a wrench and fix a pump, or work on your guys' dryer, or help with the biosolids, or whatever it may be. He's always willing to do that. And again, at the plant profile, I think we had like 35 or so operators at your guys' wastewater plant, and Dale grabbed a group and led them on a tour and was able to talk about the plant, was knowledgeable, and it really shows in how your guys' plant shows. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, it's a dirty old wastewater plant. No, your guys' wastewater treatment plant is immaculate. Everything was running as it should. The water that was coming out of the wastewater treatment plant was clean, and it just really shows what the operators at the wastewater treatment plant are doing. So I know he's not here tonight because he's sick, but I would also like to recognize Dale McClassen for the 2025 Treatment Plant Operator of the Year. Okay, and lastly, we joked about it in our board meeting, but Stayton just really ran the board with all our awards this year, and it was hard to say no. We voted on the Operator of the Year awards, and those were decided on, and then we started talking about the Plan of the Year, and everyone's came to the same conclusion that it was no doubt it was Stayton this year, and it should be awarded to Stayton. I think as we were talking about it, Danielle even said, "No, it's okay. You can give it to someone else. You don't need to give it to us." I'm just happy that our crew's being awarded, the awards, and I'd just be happy if you talked about our plan a little bit when you came and presented those awards. But we continued to talk about it as a board, and no one could say anything negative about the Stayton plant and how well they presented themselves in the plant profile and how well the plant showed. And like I said, you can tell your operators have a ton of pride in the facility at the wastewater plant and at the water plant. We did a joint wastewater plant tour this year at Stayton, and it went to show both ways. So I want to again recognize Stayton for their wastewater treatment plant of the year. Congratulations. All right, with that, I will let you guys get back to your regular business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and councilors, if I may, before they leave, I just want to commend Danielle and her whole team. I think she has supported and created a team that does have pride, and I think she and everybody there has done an amazing service to the community, and well-deserved to all of you. Thank you very much.
Agreed. So no pun intended, but that would be a clean sweep, yeah? Oh, it was a dirty joke, come on. All right, thank you for that. It definitely highlights the job that those folks are doing down there, so maybe we can make sure that Mr. Floyd sees that. All right, let's go on to the public hearing. Resolution number 25-017. Electing to receive state revenue sharing funds. Start off with Mr. Brand.
Good evening. For the record, James Brand, City Finance Director. This is an annual event where we accept the state revenue shared funds. So basically the state collects taxes from various things, and it's allocated in portion to cities, but we do have to have a resolution accepting those funds. These funds are part of our budget. We are anticipating using them in the budget that the Budget Committee has passed recently. So we do recommend that you approve this. We have 5 different types of funds here. 4 of them are unrestricted. Those are the liquor tax, marijuana tax, the generic state revenue sharing, and the cigarette tax. And then the one dedicated to the street fund is the state gas tax. So with that, we recommend passing this resolution.
Thank you. I have to read my little statement. So I will read the statement. Oregon Revised Statutes 221.770 requires 2 public hearings be held to hear from citizens regarding the use of state revenue sharing funds distributed to the city of Stayton. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony on the proposed uses of the funds. Before opening the public hearing, we'll receive a staff report, which we just did. And so with that, we'll open the public hearing. I will now open the public hearing. Did city staff receive written testimony or request to testify virtually regarding the proposed uses of state revenue sharing?
No, we did not.
Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would like to provide testimony regarding proposed uses of state revenue sharing? Doesn't look like it. All right, so there's no testimony. With that, I will close the public hearing and go to council deliberation.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Sims.
I'll make a motion to move to adopt resolution number 25-017 as presented, declaring the city's election to receive state revenues.
A second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 25-017, electing to receive state revenue sharing funds. Any further discussion? Melissa, will you poll the council on this one?
Sure. Counselor Sims?
Yes.
Counselor Carey?
Yes.
Counselor Patty?
Yes.
Counselor Ort?
Yes.
Counselor Bauer?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the next item, which is general business. Resolution number 25-018, adopting changes to the 24-25 budget. Mr. Brand again?
Yes, so we're approaching the end of the fiscal year. So this is the current year we're in that ends June 30th. And we find that there are 3 appropriations that will exceed their budget. Luckily, they all have contingencies that we think will cover the deficits. So the first is the pool fund, and I have spoken about this in the past, but it was basically under budgeting on the personnel side, coming out of COVID and just not having a good feel for the amount of personnel needed for a fully operational pool. So the budget was basically set too low there. That's the bulk of the change there. And then in the Mayor City Council Fund, that's where we use the Neighborhood Improvement Grant. And this was a timing issue where grants that we approved last year spilled over into the current year. So there was a $6,000 payment for that. That if we don't cover that with contingencies, then we would not be able to cover all the grants that we just approved for this year. It's kind of an awkward timing thing because of that June 30 deadline. We won't have that problem next year with the 2-year budget. So this $6,000 covers that from the general fund. And then the third one, it has to do with the debt service payment. When I set the budget there, I did not realize that this was a variable interest rate loan. And the interest rate got changed as interest rates have been rising. So that's a single line item in the budget just for debt service. So there is a shift from the contingency to cover that. That was a little over $3,000 for that. So with that, I would just recommend you approve these changes from contingency to the operational budget. So overall, it doesn't change or appropriate additional funds. It just moves it from contingency to the operational budgets.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Brand. There's an opportunity for a public comment. Doesn't look like there is any. Council? Any questions? Councilor Sims?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
James, so the community improvement grant, the $6,000, did that get spent on something else? Is that why we got to pull it out of contingency?
It was spent as intended, just delayed. They weren't able to complete the project on time. I'm not sure exactly which project this was.
So it was the RDS bike racks. They ordered them, but they weren't delivered and installed before the end of June, and we couldn't make the payment until that project was complete, and so it didn't get paid until this current fiscal year. So essentially, we kind of had discussed when we were doing the community improvement grants that we budgeted about $15,000, and we could have done less and been within budget, but the general consensus was that you wanted to award what you had envisioned awarding in this fiscal year, and so it was really because of that timing in, I think, July or August of this fiscal year. So essentially, $6,000 didn't get spent last fiscal year, that got spent this fiscal year.
Okay, all right, that's okay. Thanks.
Councilor Patty?
Prepared to make a motion unless anybody else has questions.
I do have a question. Julia, I might be mistaken, but where did we leave off when we had all those folks in the room asking for the community grant funding? I thought we were going to circle back around with the folks that maybe were still on the list, or?
Yeah, I'll have to check with Jennifer. She wasn't feeling well today, so I'm sure she would be here if she had been. But we were going to reach out to the youth soccer, I believe, and the Brown House and see if they had the ability to use some funds that were left over. I know the Brown House indicated that they they said no, essentially. And I don't know if we heard back from the youth sports or not, so I'll check on that.
Okay, but that doesn't have any impact on this
No.
movement. Okay. Councilor Patty, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt resolution number 25-018 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a motion and 2 seconds to approve resolution number 25-018, adopting changes to the 24-25 budget. Any further discussion? Melissa, will you pull the council on this one too?
Sure. Counselor Bauer,
Yes.
Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Yes.
Counselor Sims.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. That leads us to another letter B, Detroit Dam drawdown update. And Barry, come on up.
We're just doing the James and Barry musical chairs up here today.
Oh, yeah.
Ross will get to join here in a moment. Don't talk until you're in the microphone, Mr. Buchanan. In the future, you can give them to us to hand out, and you can start speaking right away.
For the record, Barry Buchanan, Interim Public Works Director. In front of you, you have a summary of what has happened with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's a summary of the presentation that the Corps has done over the last 3 days and has another presentation tomorrow. I'm not going to go through the summary in detail. It's pretty straightforward. It gives you an outline of the history of the dam and why they're there. It talks about the zoning within the dam as far as storage capability is concerned. It talks about the EIS that has already been issued for comment. It was
And EIS being...
Environmental impact assessment study, sorry. So yes, sorry, I should say that. And it was issued in April for comment. What I will carry on and talk about now is what we are interested in as it stands today. There is a supplement to the EIS, and it's called a supplemental EIS, very complicated. And the reason that they're doing this is that there are 2 issues that have come up since they drafted and wrote the original EIS. The original EIS was written between 2019 and 2024. Once they submitted, or in the process of submitting, the federal government asked if the dams could be closed down as far as hydro dams are concerned. And the Corps of Engineers, in actual fact, gave a recommendation to the federal government, but that has not been tabled in the federal government as it stands today due to lack of staffing in the federal government, in the Corps of Engineers senior department. So in addition, so that is to be investigated. There is to be a formal investigation and study on whether the dam should continue to operate as a hydro dam. The second issue is that they did not really take into account in the original EIS the impacts to the water purveyors downstream in association with what would happen under a deep drawdown condition. So they're going to put those 2 things on the table and now undertake a study associated with those 2 items. The action that we're taking right now, or the action that they are taking right now, is effectively putting together a scope of works for the supplemental EIS, and that's what we were listening to in the presentation. We will get opportunity, or we have opportunity to comment on the scope as it stands, and we have to have a document in their hands by the 6th of June, i.e. 3-4 days away. What we're intending to do tonight is ask for your support to have the Mayor sign a letter that we will draft over the next day. There is another presentation by the Corps tomorrow, and we will actually actually attend that presentation in person so that we can get any formal comments or listen to any formal comments that anybody else has. Once we have that information, we'll sit down and draft a letter, and we're asking you guys tonight if you will support the Mayor signing that letter so that we can in actual fact send it onto the Corps of Engineers as formal request information documentation associated with the EIS, supplemental EIS. We have a set of questions that we're looking at presenting. That's on page 2, the bottom of page 2. There's a series of questions here that we think are relevant to the presentations that we actually sit in at already. We're hoping that there may be more questions come up from tomorrow, and we will supplement these questions and add them to the document that we're preparing. Next steps, as far as we're concerned, are to draft the formal response to the Corps of Engineers, have our legal counsel we have engaged, and perhaps I'm stepping out of turn here, but we have now engaged legal counsel to help us with Ross's support. We have Jennifer Gates from Pearl Legal Group to help us out in evaluating, forming strategy, and moving forward with a legal approach to mitigating our issue associated with the deep drawdown as well. Once we have it's gone through Jennifer's hands, we'll actually formalise that document and get it filed with the Corps. Following that, we will confirm ongoing meetings associated with our now internal group that we have formulated, including the Mayor and Mr. Sims, as our working group associated with the project. We'll continue to investigate mitigation activities. We will continue to talk to other people associated with the drawdown in our region, and we'll work to, in actual fact, coming up with a mitigation plan and getting in place a way to move forward in total strategies. I'd now like to ask the Council to consider allowing or involving the Mayor to sign the document for us to move to the Corps.
And or any questions that you might have. We want to just give you updates throughout this process, and as Barry mentioned, we did have a work group meeting last week. We attended the scoping meetings and met with our new specialized legal representatives. So there's been a lot of things recently, and so we wanted to give you an update and also give you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. And I just want to reiterate, our approach continues to be sort of multi-pronged. You know, we're talking about the technical and the mitigation and the what we can do, and meanwhile we're looking at legal avenues and opportunities to, you know, delay or mitigate on that end. And so we're really trying to tackle it from all fronts.
Mr. Mayor. Councilor Carey, go ahead.
On the legal counsel side of that, unless I missed something in the budget meetings, where's that funding coming from for legal counsel?
So I was just talking with James about that today. We have the contract services, essentially they're sort of like miscellaneous contracts. As we get to a certain point, if we get to a certain point, we might need to discuss whether or not we need to move money from contingency, but we're hopeful that we won't need to do that. But we'll have to discuss that as we get closer.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sims.
Barry, I had a question. Tomorrow night there's a town hall in Salem, I believe. Are we attending that, or?
Yes, I will be attending that to gauge any further questions or questions that come from the floor. I'm expecting that meeting, well, we already know that the presentation that will be presented tomorrow night will be exactly the same one as we've already attended. The reason that they're having in-face presentations is to give people the opportunity to come in and spend longer discussing with the presenters than they had opportunity to on the virtual questionnaires. I can tell you that from the virtual questionnaire, they left 20 minutes for questioning. They got one question.
The second meeting, I actually attended both virtual meetings because I was a little lost in the first meeting, so I actually wanted to watch it again so I could maybe grasp a little bit more. And there were definitely more questions in the second meeting, but not a ton, maybe like 5 questions. So I think that the in-person meetings are probably going to garner a lot more.
And there was an in-person meeting in Detroit on Saturday that unfortunately I wasn't able to attend, but I will attend tomorrow's.
Okay, I just wondered who was going to the meeting, basically, or it's just you going, or?
Do you want to come?
So I was not planning, I just after going to the first 2 and knowing that Barry was going to go, I have Parks Board, so I wasn't going to go, and I don't
Right.
know. I don't know that it's necessary, but we can discuss that too.
Okay,
But-
we can talk after, I guess.
Julia, one of the good things is if you can't attend it in person at your leisure, it's been recorded, correct, Barry? Those are
Yes,
recorded.
that's
so
correct.
You can go back and watch it. From an historical perspective, I think I learned quite a bit on that particular presentation. But to your point about the questioning at the end, there was only one question, and I don't know that they left a lot of time. I'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. They have left 2 hours. There's an extra hour in the face-to-face presentation. The presentation will still only be 3/4 of an hour, but they will now have an hour and a quarter of question time available at the Salem.
Yeah, so the link I sent everybody, if you go into that, you'll find the recording of it, I think. Just a statement, these questions are awesome questions. These 6 questions to be raised by the city, I really appreciate the effort put into that, the thought process, and I think they're pertinent. It'll be interesting to see what kind of answers you get from it.
Yes.
Barry, thank you very much for all you're doing for us.
Anything else, Council?
Are there any concerns, I think I know the answer, but we just want to ask,
yeah.
are there any concerns with the mayor signing a letter commenting? We just think it will be more impactful for it to come from the city council through the mayor than just staff.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, no
Everybody good?
concerns from me.
Okay. The one thing, the secondary request we had up the canyon, we're going to hold off on that for a little bit, correct?
Correct. That was the advice of the lawyer.
Okay,
Yes.
sounds good. Sorry, that was a consideration for federal appeal. I'll leave it at that for now.
We are working closely both with our work group, but also the attorney that is specialized in this, and she's given us, we're just wanting to make sure we're not doing something that's going to put us on less solid footing, and so we're, yeah.
Yep. And that's what I conveyed without conveying that to up the canyon. So, thanks, Barry. Appreciate it. With that, we'll go to the final charter review discussion. Julia, and I think
And
Ross
actually,
is gonna
Ross,
come on up.
live and in person. And, well, I'll go ahead, take it away.
Good evening, Council. Ross Williamson, your esteemed city attorney here. So tonight we are going to walk through what we've been walking through for quite a while now. It looked green, but it wasn't blinking green. Thank you. Ross Williamson, city attorney, and tonight we're going to walk through the charter review questions that we have been talking about for the last several months. And I have what I hope to be a nice little chart to help us walk through that process. It's a 4-page chart with lots of questions, but I can, yes, color-coded even. I really pulled out all the stops on this one. It might also be good to have in your packet is also the current city charter, so we can kind of walk through those 2 documents together. And the end result for tonight is to hopefully get consensus about which provisions we want to work on and present to the voters for a possible charter amendment. And then we'll also talk about timing for that vote and what goes into that. And I guess I will also start by saying the end result after tonight could be no changes. So saying no changes is a valid option. I don't believe there is a legal necessity for any changes, but this was kind of brought up originally to discuss the mayor's role on the council, and then it kind of, I added some other items to our list to look at. So we might as well just start walking into it. So I put these in order, the charter, and so section 4 is the first section that we talked about, and it's regarding annexations. And the issue here is the highlighted word required, and whether it makes sense to maybe change out that wording for what's used in Corvallis, because we have case law that looked specifically at the Corvallis wording, and so we know what the Corvallis wording means under this new statute that applies. And so there are certain annexations that cannot go to the voters if the criteria in the statute are met. And so if we borrowed the Corvallis wording, then we would be squarely within that. Again, it's not required. We don't have to bring this matter to the voters if we don't want to, but I think that the purpose here would be to clarify your current wording. Another option would be to delete it entirely. Your charter doesn't need to address annexations. It's fully encompassed within state law, and so we could do nothing. We can delete it entirely, or we could wordsmith a little bit and borrow from Corvallis. So those are the kind of the three options we have for you in terms of section 4.
Ross, do you want to go over this one individually, or should we wait to the end?
I think it makes sense to go through them and just answer questions, because then it's fresh in your mind.
Okay. Does council have questions for section number 4, annexations?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross, for that presentation, or kind of a reaffirmation of what we've been discussing on Section 4 of the Charter. I just want to clarify something that you had said. You were talking about removing it entirely. I guess my knee-jerk question on that is just: do we lose any local control or autonomy by doing that? I mean, do we maintain anything? I mean, does this just make it less complicated? I guess that's where I'm going with that.
Great question. No, very good question. So you would lose a little bit of voter control on annexations. Right now, we have annexations for big parcels, so 3 acres and above. Those would go to the voters. Under 3 acres, they would not. I would say the lion's share of annexations are probably under 3 acres, just in my experience, unless you get a big subdivision that wants to come in and build out, and that's when we would ask the voters. And so I think voter approval of annexations is popular in Marion County for whatever reason. It's not popular statewide. So Stayton is definitely in the minority in terms of cities across the state that have even this provision in the charter. It's largely a state statutory process. So if we were to delete this, you would be asking your voters to change up and give up some of their local control.
Because just to clarify, there may be incidences where someone wants to do an annexation that doesn't meet the state criteria that requires us to not require a vote. So essentially, if you deleted it, if it was over 3 acres and it didn't meet all the letters of that state law, you could still take it, if we had it in the charter, you could still require it as a vote. If it was out, then we would not require it as a vote. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was on the both times we reviewed this, and I thought, my understanding when we did it was we thought that we didn't have the ability to have it go to the voters anymore, and so we left it in there in the event that we did have that ability again, we would have it in the charter. So,
Yeah, so when this was last before you in 2018, I believe, yeah, that was during the litigation. That was right in the middle of the litigation with the Corvallis case, and so there was a lot of question. Yeah, good memory, Mayor.
yeah, thanks for that.
Mr. Mayor?
Dr. Sims, go ahead.
So, Ross, if it doesn't meet the criterion that's over 3 acres, and we didn't put this in at all, would it go to the council at all, or would it just be approved?
So if it was, if it did meet the criteria of this, or didn't meet this.
Didn't meet, yeah, if it doesn't meet the criteria for state law, unless if it's not mandated by state law.
Right.
And we didn't have it in the charter at all, so would we not even, so would it just be approved anyway?
No. It would still be, there's a land use process for every annexation, and the end result of every annexation is a city ordinance. So it would go through your planning commission process, and then it would come to the city council for approval. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I was just trying to clarify that.
Yeah, and there's set criteria that they have to meet. That, public improvements have to be available, water, sewer, street, all of those things that we have to look at.
Okay, all right, thanks. That makes it clear.
Opportunity for public comment, all of that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Council Ort?
Ross, the part about changing to remove required, can you just explain why would we want to remove required?
Mostly because that word is different than the Corvallis case. And so we don't have a case right now that says, when is something not required by state law? It's just a unique word that we don't have a court opinion on. And so if we wanted,
that could be challenged, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and so there's just there's some potential ambiguity there.
Okay, I gotcha. So that you're saying that could be it's open to interpretation. So take it out to kind of shore up the language there.
Right, and I guess the suggestion would be to borrow Corvallis, because we know exactly what courts think that wording means, the Corvallis wording, and it is exactly, if someone does not meet the state statutory criteria, then we can still put it to a vote.
Okay. Just in my opinion, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the Corvallis, plagiarizing the Corvallis wording myself. So.
Plagiarizing. Okay.
Not
Yeah.
borrowing.
Yeah, we don't plagiarize
No,
here.
we don't. All right, so does council have consensus about changing it to the Corvallis example? Consensus for that? Okay, good. There you go, Ross, thank you.
And keeping the 3 acres, or doing away with the 3 acres?
Keeping.
No, I heard 3 acres, keeping it, retaining it.
I don't see a reason to remove the 3 acres. I guess that's where I'm stuck on that.
Okay. So does that work?
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you. All right, Ross.
All right, next up, Section 9. This is the mayor's provision, and so we have, again, maintain unchanged, keep the mayor's position as is. The yellow wording is wording that relates to the mayor as a non-voting member of the council. We could change that to be a voting member of the council. And if that's the wish, then I would look through the rest of the charter, and we would update the definition of council to include the mayor being a member of the council. We would update the quorum issue, because then we would have 6 voting members, and so that would be a significant change for you all. Right now, 3 votes passes an ordinance or a resolution. It would then require 4 votes. The green wording has to do with the mayor's authority right now to have the council reconsider, kind of a soft veto, shall we say. And then the blue wording is simply to clarify that the mayor is not an administrator of the city and just holds political functions. It's just a clarifying that the mayor doesn't right now employ those duties, and we would just clarify in the charter that we have a professional administrator who does those jobs, and the mayor is not the administrator.
And Ross, just for clarification, this is unique to the rest of the cities, right? Our current structure is unique to the rest of the cities. Majority, I should say.
Majority, I would say. So I believe that this is a provision in your charter that didn't modernize with other provisions in your charter. So back in the day, we had a smaller city, and we had a non-professional staff for the most part. We had a city administrator and a city recorder, and as the city grew, we got a city manager and very professional staff, and the city manager became a charter position, but we left this mayor position as is from back in the day when maybe the mayor played more of an administrative role, was kind of oversight and directed how the council should be, had this veto authority, but didn't have the vote. And so I think what we would be doing here is modernizing the mayor's position. Most mayors now across the state do vote.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Carey.
What's Corvallis do?
What is
Just
Corvallis?
kidding. Just
Yeah, we're not going to. Nice, you caught me there.
No, I really think that I'm in favor of having the mayor part of that voting quorum.
Councilor Sims.
I'm also in favor of having the mayor vote. Number 2, I guess we may have to look at adding another counselor, but
Just for quorum's sake, you mean?
For quorum's sake.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Ort.
Ross, we had that discussion, didn't we, that we don't necessarily have to, we talked about it, but we don't necessarily have to add or subtract one. But would this be the time to have that discussion or decision, because we have to bring this to the voters and do the whole rigmarole and whatnot?
Yeah, so we did talk about that. You're very correct, and it's not required. You can have an even number on the council. This would be a great time to have that discussion, and so that's number 5 on my list is whether or not we subtract, so we have 5 voting members, or whether we add, and so we have 7 voting members. I guess I would say. I looked this afternoon before I left, and I could not find an example of an even number on the council. There must be cities out there that have an even number, but I could not put my finger on one as an example. I would say 5 and 7 are the predominant examples across Oregon. But there's no reason, 6 can work. You just, there'll be ties, and a tie means the motion doesn't pass. So you would need 4 votes to pass a motion.
Okay. So you just revisit it again.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor.
So I have a question, because we sometimes have a lack of involvement in participation in our elections. And so my concern would be if we were to add on another position, would there, how much participation will we get in that position? But, okay, so would the process be, if no one ran for that position, would we then fill that position ourselves?
It's still an option.
Right. Or would we leave that vacant? How would you... Would you you know what I'm saying?
I absolutely know what you're saying. Yes. So
would we have to fill that position? Obligated? Would we be obligated to fill that position? Not that I'm not saying that we wouldn't want to, but I'm saying how would that work? Does it even say that in our charter?
So you have a vacancy provision, and so we would operate under the vacancy provision. So it would be rare after an election, even if no one ran for the position, for it to remain vacant, because we have the write-in process. So someone with 2 votes through the write-in process, someone who's not named Mickey Mouse, because that's a popular one, and someone who received actual votes and was qualified for the position would very likely be the candidate who
Okay.
wins. And so in the election scenario, almost always someone is elected.
Okay.
But otherwise, if someone dropped out, we would have a vacancy process to fill that position.
Gotcha.
Okay, so what does council want to do with the mayor slot? Is there consensus to change it?
Yeah, I want to change it to
Okay.
make you a voting member. You definitely deserve that.
Not just me, it's the position.
Well, the position.
Yeah.
I apologize. The position
Okay.
deserves that.
Okay, Councilor Bauer?
You're voted in, so I think you deserve a vote on this table.
All right, you have consensus on that, Ross, sounds like, from council, to make the changes that you have highlighted here.
Well, what do we think about the reconsideration authority? Do we want to let the mayor keep that? Or delete that? Or do we have
Well,
to?
then we would,
So
go ahead, Ross.
that's definitely a policy call, and that's why it's on the list here. But I would say it would generally go hand in hand. So if you create a voting member on the council, that reconsideration authority would probably drop away, would be the common answer.
Okay.
Otherwise, that one person would be the power to do that. No other member of the council would be able to do that.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, council, can you just clarify that one? What would you like to do on that one? You want to leave it or have it deleted if the mayor's position becomes a voting member of the council?
Mr. Mayor, it's Councilor Batty.
Councilor Batty.
I think we should remove it if you have if you're a voting member. I think that's probably most appropriate. I share Councilor Ord's concern, though, about being able to fill an additional city council position and what that would look like. And I know that leaves us as unique and even, but I have a lot of reservation about that, to be honest with you guys.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
go ahead.
Sorry. Ross, if they were to delete a position through the charter, I imagine that you have to spell out how and when that deletion happens. It's not like, oh, you know, the last one in gets voted on. I mean, like, how does that work if you lower the number of electeds through the charter?
Great question, and that's where we would get creative. That's where we would come up. I've actually never done that, so that's where we would figure it out. And it could be, it could be last in, first out. It could be longest tenured out. It could be a draw of straws. There are several different mechanisms to accomplish that result. It could be via volunteer. Who doesn't want to be around next year? So we would have to work through that.
It might be easier to add than to delete.
I would definitely think so. Yeah.
And I guess I understand Councilor Ord's position. I would like to see at some point, I think our city's too small, but at some point, the districts appeal to me. You know, geography of the city. But
Yeah,
I think it's too small. And to your point, the challenge we have now, just getting people to step forward. So, okay, what is council? Any other thoughts on this? Are we good on this, or what do you want to do?
I'm not opposed to adding a position. It's just a concern.
I think we add a counselor if you're going to get a vote, just to have a 4-3 split.
Councilor Patty?
I mean, to the point that was made earlier, I think it's easier to add than subtract. Like I said, it's gonna be tough. And you know, as far as the write-in process, you know, I love to see local, folks be able to vote on that. But you know, if somebody has like 1, 2, 3 votes, and then do they even want to do it? A million things are going through my mind on that. But if we have to add to move this process forward, I'm not opposed to it.
And we can certainly look, I honestly don't, I haven't looked to see what the average city's council sizes are, especially smaller cities. I know Dallas, because it's shockingly large, they have 10 people
Yeah.
on their council, which so think about their budget committee.
Well, and we're still going to have to get, the voters still have to approve this, so we can, go through the motions once, if indeed that takes place. All right, so let's give a little direction here. What do y'all want to do?
So we're going to make the mayor a voting position, delete the reconsideration authority, and clarify that the mayor lacks administrative duties. Oh wait, we're gonna change,
I think
we're gonna take that away if the mayor gets the vote.
So, and then I guess another question for Ross. This all comes as one package, so people don't vote on individual items. The whole proposed changes will be presented to the voters, and they would vote for it in total, correct?
That's a question on page 4.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, it could be either way. And I've done it either way.
And I appreciate that, asking that question, Julia, because I would think that the more items for voters to review lessens our chance of success of getting it any kind of passage. So, okay, so can we move on this one? All right, Ross, looks like we're good for that one with your proposed changes.
All right.
I'm sorry, can and maybe you got the clear, are you proposing to add, or are you just not really making a direction there and going to come back to it?
Is the ad, can we put the ad somewhere else under council, or does it have to be there? It doesn't matter to me. Is that where you would recommend putting it?
The question was here. Yeah, it would not be in this section of the charter. Yeah.
Okay, so the desire of the council is to adopt the change that Ross is proposing and add a 7th council member. Looks like we're good? Looks like we're good.
All right. Section 17 is the ordinance enactment provision, and I think we've already made the decision on this one. So this is the procedure that the mayor uses for the reconsideration process. And so if we remove that from the mayor's authority, we would also make these changes. We would delete the reconsideration process. Head nods?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Section 33 is the vacancy process and how council vacancies are filled right now. As you can see, the first sentence talks about the vacancy in the mayor's position, and that is the majority of the council fills. And then it switches over to the second sentence where it says a council vacancy is filled by appointment by the mayor with consent of the council. And I've always thought that process is a little wonky because it doesn't take the power away from the council, but the person you're voting on is presented by the mayor. And so the council doesn't get to select who they're voting on. It's the mayor's job to select who they're voting on. And so if you harmonize the first sentence with the second sentence, then the council is the one who makes a motion. I appoint John Doe, and then the rest of the council votes on that. I recommend Councilor Jane Doe, and we all vote on that. And so it's no one person has the appointing authority. It's a group process.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sims.
I'm for number 2, the change the councilor vacancy process so that remaining members of council make appointment.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Ort.
So to clarify, anyone on the council could make a motion to bring someone forward, and then we would decide on them together?
Yep. Yeah. So just to paint it a little bit for you, so that there's no set process on filling a vacancy in your charter, as with many other charters. So you got to come up with your process. The usual process is you have applicants. So you advertise the position at one meeting, and then you wait 30 days. You get the applicants. Maybe you do interviews. You have them all come. You get to ask them all questions, and then maybe the next meeting, you've all made your decide. You've picked out from maybe the 4 applicants who you all want. And then one of you gets to say, well, I like applicant 1, so I'm moving for applicant 1. And then we see if we can get 4 votes on that. If we don't, then someone else makes a motion, and maybe it's applicant 3. I want applicant 3. And then you see who gets the most votes. So that's, I keep hitting the microphone, I'm sorry. Gotta stop talking with my hands. That's the usual process.
My 2 cents is I like that because it gives the council a voice, everybody on the council a voice, and a vote, essentially. But it's up to y'all.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
Yeah, I think I'm in support of that too. Thank you.
Ross, this is the, sorry, did you have a question? Julia? Or Luke, you have a question? Ross, this is the one that kind of, when we were discussing it, that kind of gave me pause for a minute, because mass vacancies, we didn't really have a plan for mass vacancies, and this addresses that, correct?
Yeah, so questions 3 and 4, when we get to we can stop,
Okay.
We can talk about those right now. So 3 and 4 go hand in hand, and so right now your vacancy provision doesn't talk about how we deal with, what if we lose a quorum?
Right.
And there's kind of an open question in your charter about what do we do if we don't have a quorum? What do those, say, 2 remaining people, how do they select someone to then create the quorum? And the model charter, this is where we would be borrowing from the model charter. The model charter has a pretty simple process that gives you, the remaining members, the authority to pick someone. So if you have 2, if there was mass vacancies, you have 2 people remaining. Those 2 people would agree on a 3rd, and then those 3 people would agree on a 4th.
So hypothetically, if there's 1 person left on the council, that person would start to build the shoulders?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's number 4. The model chart actually raises that too, and so it says, if you are down to 1, then that 1 person can pick a second, and then those 2 would build. It answers the doomsday scenario.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor
so if we're
Carey.
adding a 7th member, does that mean we have a vacancy right now, then? We're going to be adding that? No.
Well, so that is I suppose we could talk about that, how we fill that position, and I think we'll talk about that on page 4 about timing, but that's a great question.
Okay, so what does council think about this portion? Consensus? Looks like we're good there, Ross.
All right, thank you. Section 34 is your city manager. Again, first option is maintain unchanged. The yellow wording is the same kind of vacancy provision. It gives the power to the mayor to bring forward the candidate, and then you all, as the rest of the council, would do an up or down vote on that candidate. Whereas if we modified that to the council, just the council appoints, then you would have a deliberation about, okay, who's going to be our candidate? Who's going to be that first person we're going to vote on? And then we would receive a motion from the council to appoint someone. And I guess I would point out, this goes hand in hand with removal as well. So you can, under your current charter, you can paint out the scenario where the mayor is very happy with your current city manager, but a majority of the council is not. And the mayor refuses to bring that to to a motion, even though a majority thinks we need to move on. And so that gives the mayor's position perhaps outweighed authority in this realm, especially if the mayor is now a member of the council. I'll say in practice, this doesn't really change a lot because you go through the hiring process for your city manager. Your city manager is a professional position. You do a professional recruitment process, and you get your candidates, and you generally coalesce around a top candidate, but sometimes not. Sometimes there are two, and half of you think one is better than the other. But here, under your current provision, it's the mayor who makes that first motion and says, okay, this is the chosen candidate. I want you all to vote on this one.
Counselor Sims?
Thank you. I would like to see it changed to removal authority from mayor to full council and establish duties and charter. I like that idea. And your coerced definition, that's good. Manager approach, I like everything, but yeah, 2 through 6, I'm in agreement with that.
I guess I get hung up on the word coerce. I could take various different definitions, and where's that defined within the body of the charter?
It is not.
Right.
Yeah. We have some case law, and in fact, out of Corvallis recently, we keep coming back. Wasn't intentional. So we do have some case law about perhaps what is not coercion. And so there are some pluses and minuses with providing a definition of a term like coercion in your charter, because it essentially sets it. And right now, the term is allowed to live a little bit, shall we say, with the times, and can maybe 20 years ago it meant something a little bit different than it does today, and maybe in 20 years it'll mean something a little bit different than today. And so the question I have is whether we actually want to define that term or not.
Gotcha.
Does the model charter have a definition?
It does not, no.
I think your explanation is sufficient, Ross, for me anyways.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Ort?
Adding this in, you mean? Like, this is what you're talking about, is adding this definition into...
Yeah, insert, yep.
Yes.
That's a question for you, yeah. I'm not proposing one or the other. Actually, I think it was you, Councilor Ort,
Yes.
that suggested it, yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying, is we're talking about adding this in, because you're... Okay. I think
Yep.
I was confused by your question.
Gotcha.
Well, and I think that this, I might be remembering wrong, but I think this question came up around the time that the city of Walport was dealing with the mayor being removed for coercing. So I think it's real. It's like, it's real things happening in the state right now where, I mean, I might be getting my facts wrong, but so I think having a little bit more understanding of what that means for everybody would definitely be helpful.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Julia. You and I had the discussion, and I don't know enough of the details in that particular Walport case to expand upon, but that's where my mind went. So I'm okay with whatever council wants to do here.
Just before we do that, I had a follow-up question for Ross. I can't remember when we went through this section, so forgive me on that. Could you refresh my memory on, are we unique in putting this residency requirement for the position into charter, or is that pretty standard at this point?
It is not standard. It's it's generally, and I think it would be quite rare to have a residency requirement in the charter. It's generally a matter of contract. And
See, that's kind of where I was going with that. I'm wondering if we should not put that in there and leave that to contract, and I'm curious what the other counselors think about that.
I'm fine with that, too.
I can tell you just to fill the dead air. In my experience, it comes up when you are hiring a professional city manager and your pool is broad and your recruitment was broad, and so you're bringing in high-quality candidates potentially from out of state. And maybe they need a little time to get settled, or maybe they are just in the next town over and they need a little bit of time to get their kid graduated from high school, or whatever the case may be. And that's where you enter those contract negotiations about how to make it work for them and for you, and you arrive at a resolution through contract.
Yeah, that's my recollection, that you reminded us we could do that during contract negotiations. We could make it a residency requirement in the contract, yeah. Yeah, good point, Councilor Patty. I didn't see that down there, I guess.
Yeah, but everything else, 2 through 5, I'm good to go on.
I'm good with that too.
I'm good with that as well.
Okay, there you go.
All right. Section 36 is kind of a while we were here type requirement. This is something that I've just seen come up during my 20-plus years of practice. It comes up very rarely, but I have had one judge question whether a municipal court judge has the authority to issue what's called an administrative search warrant, which is a tool we use, maybe not a lot, but it's one of our best tools at the city level for dealing with nuisance properties. And so it's not a law enforcement matter. It's a city staff matter, but we want to enter a piece of property in order to help them clean up the nuisance property. And we need a court order to do that. And it's not a search warrant. Because we're not using law enforcement, we're using generally public works staff or a contractor, and I think it's. I've been very successful in arguing that we have the authority through the search warrant provision, but it would make my job even easier if we said search warrants and other warrants.
Like it.
Yep. Seems like
There you
maintenance.
go.
And last, in terms of charter provisions, we have Section 37, the personnel rules. And this is simply, again, just to have the conversation. I don't have a recommendation one way or the other. But it is whether to have the council adopt these rules or whether to have your professional city manager adopt these rules. So we could remove this provision entirely from the charter. We could keep it as is, or we could fine-tune it a little bit as to the compensation provision, because you do set compensation structures within your budget process, and so we could remove reference to compensation. I have no problem with the wording as is, but this is just to have that discussion. Since we have a professional city manager who's in charge of all your staff, maybe that's where that power should live, rather than with the volunteer city council.
This is one I would like to see maintain unchanged.
I agree with you, Brian.
Again, no, as a legal matter, no problem with that decision, if that helps.
Councilor Sims, good. Carrie? Councilor Patty?
Can you just elaborate a little bit on that? I'm just curious.
I think the way it's written now is the same way it's going to proposed. There's nothing really, there's not a real big modification to it that I don't see a reason to change it.
Got it. Thank you.
And,
All right.
and if I did want to change it, I would want to make sure that the council still approved it, so I see it, just keep it intact.
That makes sense to me. Okay. I just was trying to understand your thinking. Thank you.
Council Ort.
So the change would be, this is for all staff? This is compensation for all staff? Then, I don't understand what this is for.
Yeah, so you have it's essentially your personnel handbook. So right now, your personnel handbook comes before you for approval, and so if we needed to make any updates or anything like that, staff would have to bring that in front of you. If the city manager had that authority, the city manager could just update the personnel handbook as laws were changed or it needed changing. It's not a big hurdle for us to bring it to you and explain what we're changing and get your approval. But this is just, some cities take this out of your bailiwick, but it lets you keep your finger on the pulse of staff. So I don't have a problem with this provision.
In the model rules on the page 13, it's basically, I think, generally following what's in the charter currently. It's just the compensation piece that isn't in there, from what I can tell. Oh, yeah, compensation. The council must authorize compensation of city officers as part of their annual budget.
Yep.
And then, so.
All right, sounds like we have a consensus on that one to leave it as is.
All right.
So, thank you, everybody, for that. Thanks, Ross. What's the next one?
The next one, page 4, are the process questions. And so we do have some changes. We have some changes to bring forward to you. And so the question is, when do we bring those forward to the voters? So our opportunities, I believe the best opportunities are November of this year or May of next year. If we did it November of this year, I would be back presenting the final package before mid-August. And we would get that on the ballot, and then folks would vote in November of this year. I don't know if Julie has any recommendations on this, but so far, we're proposing a pretty significant package, I guess I would say. You know, we're changing the mayor's position. So historically, the mayor in Stayton has never had the vote, and so we're proposing to change to that, and we're also proposing adding a new member. So this is a pretty significant change in terms of city charters, and so we would want to do some voter education, and we would want to have the time to do that, and some of that falls on your shoulders to advocate for however you want to advocate, but educate your voters for these changes. And so we would have to be working up some materials for you all to use, getting you some speaking engagements perhaps, and other things on your staff plate.
Yeah, well, I was also going to say that as you're thinking about the timing, we will also likely have the park and pool levy in November that will also have a pretty heavy lift, yeah.
I think the fire department levy might be on November too, I think.
I think that they said they were 2026, but
I don't know. You just need to confirm that, I guess. I'll leave that up to council. What is council's desire here?
Just kind of a, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Julia, just kind of a general question to staff. Realistically, do you think we could get any kind of information campaign or speaking engagements together before November 2025? Or is that kind of pie in the sky trying to do that in that timeline?
I think we could do it. I guess the question is, are we spreading ourselves thin in terms of message that we're trying to put out there? Because that's a heavy lift of public education, and then the levy is potentially a heavy lift as far as public education. And so Yeah, well, it just, I think we could do it, it just might dilute the message.
You know, the more I'm thinking about this, I think we should wait, personally. And I'd love to hear about this single ballot measure idea, what that would look like.
Yeah, so we have an option of how we present this to the voters. And so the obvious choice is to bundle all this into a package. What you did in 2018 was essentially adopted a new charter. So it was kind of you essentially, here's the new charter. There was I'm sure there was a red line provisions of it, a document that showed there were provisions that weren't changed, but it was a whole new charter. This is the 2018 charter, and so we could do that again. This is the 2025 or 2026 charter, and all of the packages, that's one vote, one ballot measure, one yes vote, one no vote. We could also group it into subjects, and so we could have maybe a logical thing would package all the mayor provisions together. So changing over the mayor and adding a new member, maybe that's one package. And then the other provisions would be a second package, or maybe even a third and fourth package, depending on how they break out. So that's, and I've done it both ways. Sometimes you break it up if you feel like one is maybe the outlier, like maybe we really think that the voters are going to have no problem with giving the judge more authority, but we don't know how they're going to feel about giving, our mayor the vote, because he's such a, we just don't know how it's going to go. Wink, wink. And so we package that separately just in case it doesn't get the vote and we don't want it to drag everything else down.
Well, just kind of, since we're expressing this, I kind of like the grouping option, to where it gives the most simplistic view of these changes to the voters so that they can understand what they're voting on, because I feel like we'll reach some sort of decision fatigue if we have too many items on the ballot. So I was afraid that each individual section would be on there, and I didn't really like the idea of that.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Carey.
I'm going to go right back to my other question about that adding the seventh member vacancy. Is that something that could be mayor appointed rather than putting it on the ballot? Where we could have interviews?
Yeah, and so that is absolutely a question for you all to decide how you want to do that. I think, and maybe some of it depends on timing a little bit. Council elections are in November, right. rather than in May, and so if we do go for May 26, we could have the charter say creates a new position, and there's no. And the new position is effective, that's another question, effective date. Maybe it's effective July 1. And so on July 1, we have this newly created position, but it's vacant because there's no election yet. And so we would fill that, you all would fill that position until the next election.
Which is in 26. So I think in chronological order, it makes sense for me, in my mind, to put this to May of 26, to Councilor Patty's point. I think 25 would be too much confusion for all the things in front of us, in front of the voter. So succinctly put it on May 26, see what the voters decide. If indeed they pass it and they create that seventh council position, then that person can run in July for the election in the fall.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Orr.
So, right now, we have 4 positions in one election and then 2 in the other. But you're talking about if we add on another one, then we're going to have 5 positions in one election and then 2 in the other.
So coming up.
I think it should be like 3 and 4.
So coming up in fall of 26, we're going to have the mayor position. Councilors Ort, Patty, and...
Oh, wait. Oh, Ken. Carrie. Councilor Carrie. No?
No.
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 Who is it?
Councilor Bauer.
Was it this?
Councilor Bauer.
Oh, right, because he filled a vacant
Right.
position.
Oh, yes.
So we'll
Yes.
have,
Councilor Giglio.
so we'll have 3, potentially the 4th one, and then the mayor.
So that makes it awkward. So
Yeah.
we could space it out. So the new position we create could be,
Could it be a 2-year term or something?
yeah. So we could say, we can draft it however we want. And so if we
Yeah,
want,
we could, sorry.
Okay.
if we want to do 3 and 3, we could draft it that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
I would just want to draft it to where it would,
Yep.
the election would fall, it would fall
Yep.
in the year of
Those two.
the other
Yep.
two.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. Makes sense. All right, so does council want to do it in November of this year or May of 26?
I like May of 26.
May.
There you go. So we can have time to sort out the
Yeah, and that will give us time to, or Ross time to come up with the actual changes and share those. And I think that might help you solidify on grouped concepts or one whole concept once you kind of can see that a little bit more.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Cool. Any other questions for Ross? Ross, thanks for your time. Thanks for your diligence.
Thank you.
And stick
for going
around,
through all
Ross,
that.
because
Yeah.
we might need you for some of my updates.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
That leads us to communication from city staff, as Julia alluded to. Go ahead, Julia.
So first, I just wanted to point out, nobody specifically asked, but you did not adopt the budget this evening. We will be bringing that to you at the next meeting. There was some noticing issues, I think, with the holidays and things, so that will come to you at the next meeting. I wanted to give an update, and Councilor Sims can chime in as well if I say anything wrong or if he wants to add anything. Last last week, there was a meeting at the Park and Ride lot that was hosted by the county. Commissioner Bethel was there along with the sheriff and some sheriff deputies, Oregon State Police representation, ODOT representation, Chariots representation. I think that's it. And it was really just discussing the Park and Ride and complaints that Commissioner Bethel has gotten about overnight camping at the Park and Ride and discussing it, opening it up for comments and questions. There were a lot of comments that were, why can't you patrol it more? Can you put a gate and open and close the gate? I think the general comment that I heard from the commission, from others, including Councilor Sims, was maybe looking at closing the Park and Ride lot. So we said, and Commissioner Bethel said that, that the county would fight or support or do whatever, but it really needed to come from the communities of Stayton and Sublimity, that she wanted to make sure that the communities were behind and supportive so that they don't do something and then have everybody upset. So I'm bringing this to you tonight just mainly to say I think we need to have a little bit more of a conversation about what that looks like, what happens to it if it is closed, where those people that are currently parking, at the staff level, we've driven by, and there's a number of cars there every day, and I think there was only apparently one rider per day on Chariots, which I'm not sure
101 riders since January 1st. Yeah.
Okay. So there's not
101 riders.
There's not a lot of people that are riding Chariots from there, but there's a lot of cars there that I think are carpools, like you can kind of see that. And so I think doing a little bit of outreach to figure out who they are, where they might be able to park if they can't park there. Are there other options? So I just wanted to bring that up, share that with you, and let Councilor Sims add anything and see if you had any initial thoughts or ideas or direction that you want to give to us to have this conversation.
I know Sublimity was represented there by Taz.
And the mayor.
And the mayor, and they had talked about supporting shutting it down also. And that's kind of that was my opinion also, was to shut it down. I know we'd have to do some outreach because there are people that park there, but There is another bus stop up near Safeway, so it's not too far away, so.
Yeah.
Councilor Bauer.
I would have one main concern about closing it would be they're going to find another place to park, and where's that going to be? You know what I mean? Liquor store parking lot, Arco, Dairy Queen. It's not the worst place they can park, so I don't know about shutting her down, per se.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Carey.
you mentioned patrolling the area. Would that be the city or the county?
So it's actually the
state.
state.
I know
That's
it's
part of the
state,
problem
yeah.
is that it's actually state patrolled. I think that the county will go out there on occasion
Right,
just
okay.
because they do, but it's not really their jurisdiction to. And we'll go out there if there's a call, just for interoperability, I think, but we don't patrol it, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Hort.
So in terms of like closing it down, is that because the nuisance of it is outweighing the benefits of people using it? Is that what's
I think
happening?
that's the gist, is that there's garbage and there's debris and is it an eyesore? Again, I recommend that we do a little bit more outreach. There were
Yeah.
only maybe 15 people there. You hear from people, so you might get more input, but I think we need to understand a little bit more about who's using it, and again, if there's other options. I did ask just because I didn't know what the history of that lot was, and it sounds like it was constructed when the overpass was constructed, and it initially was gravel, and then it was paved at some point. I think it's way bigger than it probably needs to be. I don't think there was any thought of, hey, we're going to build a park and ride lot for 50 cars. I think it just was sort of a space that was created after a construction project and is big, and maybe it doesn't need to be that big, or maybe it can be rezoned into something and redeveloped into something. So I think there's options and opportunities, but I think that having a little bit of conversation with sublimity too, frankly, to see what should that be, and who's not using it or who is using it, and how can they be served. And maybe there's partnership opportunities with the Safeway, that they might provide. I've seen it where private property owners will lease for, very little, 10 spaces for park and ride, or, something like that. So there might be opportunities to have those conversations going forward.
Does the state own that property?
Yes.
Did they talk about what it looks like to close it?
Well, what they said is they literally could just close it, put a gate up, put boulders up, similar to what's across from where the golf club is. That was a spot that they also own, and they just literally closed it. And that some of the people that were there were like, well, there's people are still going to be there. There's still going to be garbage. And so...
There's not.
Right. That's what people said. So
yeah, that remedied that situation pretty quick. I guess for me, Julia, I don't mind you checking to see who uses it. My suspicion is a lot of those people that park there and get rides to wherever else they're going are from surrounding communities. And to your point about the bus stop being right in front of the Public Works, there's that piece. So I guess for me, maybe getting a little bit more feedback, if we can get it, if we can obtain it, great. Otherwise, I'm in favor of shutting it down too. Because of the issues we've had recently with all of the just the nuisance part of it, where we had to ask multiple people at ODOT to go out there and clean it all up and try to curtail that. I'm in favor of shutting it down. But again, that's after you get more information. Maybe my mind will change.
Okay.
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you. I'm pretty neutral on it at this point, because I hate to lose it as a resource, but then again, I don't think I fully appreciate some of the nuisance issues that it's provided some of the people there. So I'd like to hear more information about the issue, and then kind of go, if we could get more information from the community too, that would be ideal.
Yeah, I mean, because I think I totally agree with Brian that I think a lot of people may be coming in from outside, but just anecdotally and talking with staff, I hear, they're like, oh, this is where we meet up to go fishing, or this is where we do these things. And so understanding how the community uses it or doesn't use it, I think would be helpful to know.
Yeah, for me, it's the entrance to our community, and 9 times out of 10, you look over there, and that sure doesn't present a welcoming site. So that's my take.
That's kind of what I said when that came up, was that's the gateway to Stayton, and looks terrible when there's people camping out there.
What is the response from ODOT to come clean up their space when asked?
Money and staff. I mean, I think they come out as often as they can, but they have limited resources, and I don't think that they have offered to give more than they've currently given.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to the gentleman that helped us clean it up just most recently, and their schedule's very tight. They have a lot of obligations. They get there when they can get there. And then their actual duties to do that, it's pretty challenging, I would say. We'll leave it at that, what they have to go through to clean up that mess, and it's, yeah. Okay.
So I'm sure we will continue discussing this, but I wanted to bring this to you. One fun thing, I guess you'll decide. 4th of July and the float. I'd like to get input from council. As you recall, last year we had a float. We actually won. It was really fun, families, lots of candy. This year, Councilor Sims and Councilor Ort, I believe, and I are all judging, so we would not be able to win an award for the float. And I believe that the mayor is the grand marshal of the parade. And so I wasn't sure if we are wanting to do a float, or if what I just wanted to get a sense from folks on what you think.
Yeah, I'd love to do one if staff can support that, but I'll ride a float, I guess is what I'm saying, if you would like.
I think I might already be on a float. It's called the Spud Bus. We'll see, though.
I think the Spud Bus could pull the trailer.
Are you going to throw out potatoes? Is that? So I'm happy for us to put it together. It wasn't that much work, and it was a lot of fun. I just wanted, if nobody was going to ride, I didn't want to do it. So.
Yeah, I have a prior obligation, so I won't weigh in on this. All I will say is more candy.
More candy.
Yeah, always.
More candy. I mean, I think I can ride after the judging's done.
Yeah.
So I can
Well,
imagine.
I would have to do that too.
Yeah, I'm not against it, but I enjoy watching the parade with my kids, and I wouldn't be available to ride on it. So.
I think it's very family friendly, so I could be on the float with
Yeah, it's fun. The kids.
My kids are
the
coming.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
They get to hand out candy. It was fun. I think they had fun last year.
Yeah, okay. I'd be on board.
Okay, we'll plan on doing a float then. Last, and Ross is here in case I put him on the spot and he has to say something. So I know the mayor has heard about this, and I know Councilor Sims has heard about this, but there is a recent opinion through the Oregon Government Ethics Commission that for all intents and purposes created a lot of confusion and uncertainty. It was an opinion that was about council food and council stuff, and essentially it sounds like they're saying no food at meetings, events. It's so confusing that, and so unprecedented, I think, that the LOC on Friday said in their meeting that they're really aggressively pushing back on the commission to try to get a little bit more reasonable. And actually, I asked Ross before this meeting, because there are, obviously, when we have work sessions and you start at 6 and you go late, and you're not paid, just like anybody watching in the universe, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that you deserve to have some cheese and crackers to tide you over while you do a tough job. In talking with Ross, the question was if we had that, and we're not saying the public cannot utilize it. It's open for anybody. I think the issue with the government, the Ethics Commission, was that you can't get a benefit that other people can't get. You're not allowed to get something that other people can't get. And so making sure that whatever we give to council is available to everybody as well, or anybody else as well. So I think that might be how we navigate this in the short term. There's also some stuff that we might need to do at the staff level. But I wanted to make sure Ross was still here in case you guys have any questions for him or any questions for me.
I'll scratch it off my list, Julia. But yeah, that's the question that I had. I think there's some cities that are going as drastically as changing their ordinance to specifically outline that food's allowed in their meetings, or I don't know.
Yeah, there is essentially, if it's part of your official compensation package, but you don't have a compensation package, and I don't know, and so like, do we have to change the charter to say you're allowed to get compensated for food? And so, yeah, it's. I think that there will be some changes, so I'm not like feeling the need to do anything major. But Ross, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think right now, watch this space. There will be changes. One of my colleagues in my office is meeting with GEC staff on Wednesday to get some tips and explanation of the policy. I think the end result is I will be able to present to you a pretty harmless policy that allows you to have food at your meetings. It's just how we get there, and the details of that we're still working on. I don't represent Portland. We don't cater our meetings, and we live in a different world than I think the Ethics Commission lives in, and so we're just trying to harmonize the two.
For me.
That's all I have.
All right, opportunity from communication from mayor and council. I'll defer to the council to start with.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sims.
So I was going to just put in a word for the spring bulk waste day, June 7th, 9 to 2 at the community center. So if people have stuff to bring that needs to go to the dump, it's free. So great day to do that. And golf tournament. Are we sponsoring a team, or what's going on with that?
We sponsored last year before it was canceled, and we just sponsored whole, so it wasn't the level that gave us a team.
Okay.
And then it was canceled, and they carried that over, so we do not have a team, but you will see our logo on that for the teen center.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had the same question, Councilor Sims, so thank you for asking it. Councilor Carey.
I know that a lot of you have seen this, but the mural is being put into place there on the Oddfellows building, and it's looking pretty good, and also the mural there on the 505.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
If we could circle back to the bulky waste, they had a question in the community come up about this. Somebody wanted to know if they had to present a Stayton driver's license to be able to be eligible for it.
Alyssa will answer that.
I checked with Republic Services last week before I made the Why Wednesday, which I'm sure you all watched, right? David. Yes, they will be checking ID. They said from what I've heard, it sounds like they were pretty overrun last time and actually ran out of room in the bins. And so, they're not covering the entire canyon, Republic Services. There's some other garbage companies in the area. And so they did tell me that they'll be checking ID.
I was afraid of that. Thanks.
Find somebody in town that you know. I don't know.
That's a good question, Councilor Patty. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Ort.
I just wanted to make a comment about the rental flyer. I think it looks really great. The pictures are awesome. I'm really excited about that. Melanie? Looks great. Thank you.
Okay, that leaves me, I guess. I wanted to highlight community action, if you will. So, if you're all familiar with the benches that are at Riverfront Park, those were a scout project, an Eagle Scout project done by Stephen Falk and his father and son team. But Stephen Jr. specifically did the benches. And they're strategically placed within Riverfront Park for people to enjoy and sit in 2 different locations. And on Sunday, I think, one of those benches was tossed into the ditch. And for you guys that are watching at home, decided that was cool. It wasn't cool, number one. But your classmate possibly, or your buddy, is the one who did all that work and put time and effort into it. So just know that when you disrupted that and threw it in the water, you threw his work in the water. But the good news is that a gentleman by the name of Tim Weisenhouse was down there walking his dog and saw the bench floating under the footbridge past the river downstream, and he jumped in the river, in the ditch, with his dog leash and got that bench and actually was able to pull it to the side. So, Counselor Sims, I thought it was on his mother-in-law's property, so I said, hey, I'm going to run down there and grab that. Can you let her know it's not me not to get the double-barrel shotgun out? So, yeah. Went down there, just repositioned it back on city property, and I sent a note to Public Works, who was great to respond to me today, said that Bob is going to go out there and readdress it. But just know that the comments from the community about that bench, it's really cherished. People really like using it, and the comments about the action was what you would expect. So the comments, the community really cherishes that ability to use that bench. And so hats off to Mr. Weisenhouse for jumping in and grabbing that, and hats off to the Falks for building that and putting that in place. So that's my 2 cents for that particular piece. I asked last time you gave us a deadline for something. I can't remember what it was for.
The comments on the vision and
Yes, sorry.
values.
I just wanted to remind everybody about that. What was the date? Do you remember?
June 15th.
Okay, cool. And then the last thing for me is, I know we talked about this before, but on the agenda items, when we have this, each agenda item has a line for public comment. Is that really necessary? I thought we were going to reevaluate that and consider removing it.
So it is in the council rules, and actually I'm just looking at my thing. I did have something to talk about the meeting time change. We can talk about that now, or we can talk about that at the next meeting. I did look at the council rules, and if we changed it, we would want to make some amendments. And as I was looking at the council rules, I have like a handful of other things that I think maybe would be appropriate to change. And so maybe I can draft like a red line version of some potential council rule changes, and we can bring that to council. If there's a consensus, I mean, we can talk about that, taking that off, but that is in the council rules, that there be an opportunity for
Okay.
public comment at each.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about council rules. Just take a look at it all together. That'd be fine. There was 2 more questions I had for you. Do we know, I haven't seen the automated speed limit signs anywhere.
I think at the
Sergeant Butler, are you able to come up and speak to that?
I was on vacation for a week and a half.
This has been longer than a week and a half, buddy.
So I didn't put them out knowing that I was going on vacation
Yeah.
at the end of that week, so that they didn't run out while I was
Gotcha.
on vacation.
Copy.
So, and then I've been trying to catch up
So
the last 2 days.
what you're
so
saying is they're strategically would be replaced soon.
They are.
Cool.
Yes.
Cool. I was just wondering, I hadn't seen them anywhere. I'm like, what happened to them? Someone steal them, or?
Yeah, so we decided on North 3rd Avenue that we were going to do 2 studies. So we put our gray box out so we could get a baseline, and then we're going to put the speed sign out and then come back with the little box to see what effect it has on the speeders.
Gotcha.
On the travelers, so.
Councilor Patty?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you're up here, sir. I just had a quick question. I noticed yesterday, as I was driving along Wilco Road, that there was a tent outside of the normal hours that we have made that permissible. And I was just wondering what, if any, awareness your agency has about that, if you guys had contact with those individuals or anything.
Yeah, so I don't know about yesterday. I know today Officer Gamble went out, contacted the individual. He packed up his stuff and moved. So he has been educated. So I sent an email out to our other day shift officers. So they will be monitoring that to make sure he continues to comply with municipal code.
Thank you. Please tell Gamble I appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, since you're sitting there, Sergeant, one more question.
Where's the chief?
Julie, was there any follow-up to myself and Councilor Patty's question about the speed limit in front of the cannery?
No, that was, that is on my radar.
Okay.
No pun intended,
right.
or pun intended. So the follow-up has been, there is a process, but I need to touch base with Chief and frankly Barry and discuss what we need to do through the county to.
And the one on.
Yeah, both of those, yep.
Yeah. Fair enough, thank you. Last thing I have is just an acknowledgement of this letter received about the cemetery from Marlene. So thank you for that, and I'll take a look at it. Anything else, folks? All right, with that, let's go home. Adjourn.